the first question I've been asked, I was asked this question by a friend who wanted to remain anonymous. I will first read the question, and I'm going to say what he told me about this question, the perspective from which he's asking this question. The question is in 3 parts. First, has Bhagavan ever given his opinion about homosexuality? If not, why do you think so? And according to his Upadesha, what could be assumed that could have been his teaching towards homosexuality? The friend who asked me this question told me he himself isn't a homosexual, but there must be many among Bhagavan's devotees who are homosexuals. So this question was asked for the benefit of such people, which I think is a reasonable point of view, because I don't know what this, how accurate the statistics are, but it's sometimes estimated that some 5% of people, that's 1 person in 20, is homosexual or has homosexual inclinations. And in many societies, this is very disapproved of. So, and even in many religions, they consider it unnatural or whatever. So if someone is a devotee of Bhagavan and they are of that inclination, they may naturally wonder what his attitude towards such things was. As far as I'm aware, nobody ever asked him directly about these things, but to understand what his attitude may have been, I think it's important to put it in the context of Indian culture. Nowadays, Indian culture tends to be, there's a strong conservative streak in Indian culture in recent years. There are a number of reasons for this, but India is actually a very, in the past, India was a very open and pluralistic society. There were many different philosophies, many different religions, many different practices. And when people from outside India came to India, having been persecuted in their home country, they were given refuge in India and absorbed into Indian culture. For example, I think even from the time of Christ or before Christ, there was a Jewish community in South India. That may have been partly due to the Roman occupation of Israel and persecution, who knows? But there's a very old Jewish community. There's also a Christian community in South India, but dates back to the early centuries of the Christian era. And there's also when Islam took over Persia, the Persian people who wanted to continue following their old religion, Zoroastrianism, were persecuted, and so they had to leave, and they came to India, and that is, they have a Parsi community, who's a small but very, that's a well-known community in India. So India, and similarly in more recent times, India gave refuge to the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. So India has always been a country which has accepted a diversity of views. And when Muslims invaded India and Christians later, I mean, under the British, the European, British and French and others, but mainly British, the European occupation of India, that brought in a different culture that also got absorbed. I mean, India has adopted the English language as its own. So India has always been a very, a culture that has absorbed many different cultural influences and has also been very open to a diversity of views. But as in any society, there will always in any society be certain conservative trends. Regarding India, the present attitude towards homosexuality in India, for a long time, it was a taboo subject. It wasn't something that was talked about. But the origins of that taboo date back to the British era. During the Victorian times, homosexuality was for religious or whatever reasons, homosexuality was made illegal in England. And when the law was passed in England, actually female homosexuality was never made illegal, but male homosexuality was made illegal in Victorian times. And when the law was passed in England, a similar law was passed in India, because it was the British who were ruling India. So homosexuality, male homosexuality technically became illegal in India from the mid-Victorian era. And it has remained so. It's still on the Indian law books. But in recent years, I think the Supreme Court in India has overruled that and says it goes against human rights. But to understand the Indian attitude towards homosexuality, we need to go back far further. Even in all Indian literature, ancient Indian literature, there is references to three genders: male, female, and what was called the third gender, Tritiya Prakriti. That term Tritiya Prakriti, it's used in, I think there are references to it in the Vedas, definitely in Manu Smriti, which is one of the basic Dharma Sastras, and that is the Sastras on what is right and what is wrong, moral Sastra setting out principles of morality, it's mentioned there. So it was very much a recognized thing in India. And the term Tritiya Prakriti is a significant one. In this context, Prakriti means gender, third gender. But Prakriti, the word itself, means nature. In Ayurveda, for example, they talk about a person's natural constitution as their Prakriti. Diseases are Vikriti. So a disease is something, if your Prakriti, if your constitution is, say, a Kapha constitution, you'll have a tendency to get Kapha-associated illnesses. But you may sometimes get a Vada illness or a Pitta illness. That is the Vikriti. That is what is a temporary condition, whereas the Prakriti is the natural condition. So Prakriti means nature. So the fact that they referred to the third gender as a Prakriti, it showed they recognized it as a natural thing. Whereas in many societies, homosexuality or anything other than the two genders, male and female, anything other than that was considered as unnatural. In India, it was considered as natural. What exactly the term third gender refers to, it doesn't have any very clear definition, but I think it's a general term for anyone who is not wholly male or wholly female. So it covers the whole LGBT spectrum, as we would say it nowadays. So this is, and in ancient times in India, there were communities of third gender people. Probably the best known one is in North India, the word slipped my mind, the Hijras, the Hijra community. Most of them are people with male bodies, but they dress as women, and probably a lot of them are homosexual. In the past, that wasn't the only community like that, but that's one of the best known ones. Such people were considered, they would be invited to weddings and auspicious occasions, and they would dance, and it was considered a blessing. They were considered to have some sort of power of blessing people. So they were given a respect. Though they had their own community, they were honored in society and treated with respect. In South India, the equivalent community is the Ali community. The Tamil word Ali comes from the root al, which is a negative, but means whereas il denies the existence, al denies a quality. So something that is not of a certain quality, you say al. So Ali means those who are neither wholly male or wholly female. And as I say, there's a community in South India. They have their own religious festivals. They have their own god. And their religious festivals are attended not only by that community, but by all people. I mean, it's very much a part of the Hindu of Hindu culture in South India, the Ali community. The god they worship is, I think he called Aravan, who was a son of Arjuna, who was offered as a sacrifice in the Mahabharata war. And before he was sacrificed, he prayed to Krishna, but before dying, he should be married. So Krishna took the form of Mohini, who is the female form of Vishnu, and married him. So part of that religious festival is the Ali people, they marry that god. So I mean, it's all these are very much accepted parts of Hindu culture, and Bhagavan was well aware of this. There are 2 verses in which Bhagavan refers to Ali. So the fact that he hasn't actually expressed any opinion about such people, but the fact that he refers to them means he recognizes that it is natural for some people to be neither wholly male nor wholly female. The 2 verses in which he refers to this, one is in Aṇṇācala Navamaṇimālai, verse 4. What he says in this verse, it's a prayer to Annamalai. What he says in this verse, in the first line, he says, malaiyuṇai ṉeṇaveṉai mannain dēṅgiḍa ṉeṇaveṉai. Sorry, malaiyuṇai ṉeṇaveṉai aṇṇān dēṅgiḍa ṉeṇaveṉai. What that means is, Annamalai is the name of Aruṇācala. Annamalai, do not think of leaving me to pine away looking upwards. Looking upwards means looking with either in despair or with longing, like one who has not thought of you. In the next line, he says, Mana malavudul enna dena ahamena manan mindida onnade. It is not appropriate for you to let me perish as earth, thinking that the filthy body which is made of earth is I. Earth there means it's referring to the element earth. So this material body, it's not appropriate for you to let me perish as a material object, thinking this filthy material body is I. And then in the third line, he says, Tana ali seri kanna nadu orukiri pannadu eniru kannala. What that means is, beloved of my 2 eyes, that is the one who is dear to my 2 eyes, without playing any trick or without deceiving me in any way, may your cool, love-filled eyes look at me. So he's praying to Annamalai to look at him graciously with love. And then in the final line, he says, Pennan aliyuru, nana oliyuru, annal ennaham ṉeṇaveṇai. This again is a prayer. He addresses Aruṇācala, Lord, form of light, unreached by forms of male, female, and those who are neither, Ali, abide in my heart. So here he's referring to Aruṇācala as the form of light. That means, by implication, the light of pure awareness, which is unreached by or transcends or untouched by any differences, such as the forms of male, female, and those who are neither wholly male or female abide in my heart. So the fact that here Bhagavan clearly referred here to 3 genders, male, female, and those who are neither wholly male nor female. So indirectly Bhagavan is acknowledging here that we don't all fit neatly into the binary gender system. Some people are male, some people are female, some people are a mixture, or may have a male body but female inclinations, or vice versa. So I mean, when we look outwards, we see so much diversity in the world. Diversity is the hallmark prakriti, of nature, of manifestation. So things don't all fit into neat binary things. So Bhagavan, indirectly, we can, that is, if someone is of a homosexual inclination and is concerned about what Bhagavan thought, well, here in the hymn to Aruṇācala, Bhagavan has indirectly referred to such people along with male and female. But what is it? What is the reality behind male, female, and Ali? These are all external forms. In our heart, what is shining in the heart of everyone? Whether we think I am man, I am woman, I'm heterosexual, I'm homosexual, I'm bisexual, I'm whatever we think, the one thing that is common to all, that is the light of awareness, I am. That is what is ṇeṇaveṇai. So ṇeṇaveṇai is shining equally in the heart of all, male, female, and the Ali, the third gender. But he transcends all such differences because he is equal in all. So Bhagavan's prayer in this verse in this final line is, Lord, ṇeṇaveṇai, abide in my heart. That is, of course, he is ever abiding in our heart, but so long as our attention is turned outwards, we overlook the fact that he is shining in our heart. So the prayer is, but we should turn back. The prayer is that we should, when he says abide, he means, it implies shine. Make me aware of your presence in my heart. So, and in the second line, he says, it's not appropriate for you to let me perish as earth, thinking this material body is I. So it's only for all these differences of male, female, third gender, heterosexual, homosexual. All these are only for all these differences are only for the body and mind and the whole person. What is common in all, what is real in all, is only that which is shining in our heart as I. So that is the reality Bhagavan points to that. But he has, as I say, he is here for those who may be disturbed, who may be worried about whether it's wrong or whether Bhagavan would disapprove. Bhagavan here is acknowledging, yes, there are differences in the manifest world. So long as we take our body as I, we will either feel ourselves be male or female or something somewhere in between. So these are all, these differences only apply to the body. They don't apply to our real nature. So Bhagavan is not concerned about all these things. Bhagavan would never disapprove these things. The other verse in which he's used the same term, there's the same term Ali, there's a work in Sanskrit called Shivanyana Bodham. It's a short work in 12 Sanskrit slokas. It's composed by a Tamil saint called Meykanda. And this is considered as the primary philosophy, or the basis of the philosophy of Shaiva Siddhanta. So though Meykanda was a Tamilian, he wrote this work in Sanskrit, and there is a Tamil prose translation of it. In some context, I'm not sure exactly what the context was, Bhagavan translated the first verse into a Tamil verse. Probably someone would have asked him to explain the idea, what the meaning of the verse was. So he would have first composed it in Sanskrit, and then he may have explained it he first composed it in Tamil and then may have explained it. So this verse begins with the same words that he used in that verse, Pen, An, Ali. That is male, female, and Ali, those who are neither male nor female. And the meaning of this verse is, I'll read the whole verse. It's Penan Ali Mudal Petriarcharium Kannokal if Ulahin Karanan Pan or Karutun Ullan. Aban ik Kasenil Mindu Arkum. Karutun Arun karatu. What that means is, because of seeing that it is by nature an effect, which is beginning with male, female, and those who are neither, one doer who produces exists as the cause of this world. He destroys and creates this world. Consider the doer to be hara. To make that slightly more, to explain it slightly more, the implication is, because of seeing that that means the world, is by nature a karya. Karya means an effect, which is a multitude of diverse forms, beginning with male, female, and those who are neither wholly male nor female. One who produces it does exist as the karana, as the cause of this world. He destroys and creates this world. Consider this doer to be hara. Hara means Lord Shiva. The idea of this verse is, I mean, this is the usual theistic argument for the existence of God. That is, we view everything in terms of cause and effect. If we see anything happening, what was the cause of it? We look for the cause in everything. So since the whole universe is an effect, what is the cause of that? That cause is it must have a cause. What is that cause? That cause is Hara. That cause is Shiva. So this is one of the basic, because Shaiva Siddhanta is a strongly theistic system. This is one of the basic arguments for the existence of God. So, as I say, in some contexts, Bhagavan translated this, but here, he's as I say, he translated this from Sanskrit. But so the idea was there in the Sanskrit original. That this is a very widely accepted and widely recognized idea in all ancient older Indian literature, in Sanskrit or Tamil or whatever language. But there are not just two genders, there are three genders. There are people who don't belong either to one gender, wholly to one gender, or wholly to the other gender. So the presence of that is the existence of homosexuals and the recognition that for a homosexual, homosexuality is natural. It is a nature. Certain people are, just like some of us are born male, we both have male physical features, and we have a male sexual inclinations, and other people are born female with female sexual inclination. There are some who, though their body is one form, it belongs to one gender, their sexual inclinations are otherwise. This is just the way nature works, and it's not only in human beings, even in people who have studied other species, animals. There's evidence that there's very homosexual inclinations even among other animals. So it's not an unnatural thing. It's maybe not the normal thing. That is, generally most people are heterosexual because sexuality is to do with procreation. So that is the norm, but it's by no means all fit into that. So I think from these two verses, in a way, Bhagavan is indirectly saying that, yes, this is natural. Some people are like this, some people are like that. It's no big deal. So I hope that answers that question, and that may be of some use to those who maybe have those homosexual inclinations. I see one person has their hand raised. Bandit, do you want to ask your question?
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Hi, Michael. And hello to everybody. Basically, Michael, this is not a critique of you or anything. You're one of my gurus. I have this question. I don't think it's been asked before. But when you talk about Ramana, can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so when you talk about Ramana, do you talk from the stance of a scholar who studied Ramana for so many years? Or do you talk from a stance of somebody who has realized the self and has seen all of that? Because you know what, I'd read your book and you mentioned that there is no use being a scholar. it is better to just realize the self. And the way I am going in my direction, I am getting so much knowledge looking at your videos and looking at other people's videos, that I am going towards the side of a scholar, but that is not the goal. The goal is to just let go of everything and just be a realized self. So just out of curiosity. So
Okay.
yeah.
Our aim is.
I'm sorry, I'm being so direct.
No problem at all. No problem at all. That is, if we are following Bhagavan's path, as I think we all are, to a greater or less extent, our aim is not just to be a scholar. Because supposing we learn so much, what is the use of all this learning? When death comes, we will forget everything. As Bhagavan says, a time will come when everything that has been learned will have to be forgotten. So mere learning is not our aim. Why we study Bhagavan's teachings, but that is Bhagavan's teachings, where are Bhagavan's teachings constantly pointing? They're pointing us back towards ourselves, turning our attention back within. That's what all of Bhagavan's teachings have one aim and one aim alone. That is to turn our attention back towards ourselves. So why we study his teachings, why we think about his teachings, because they're constantly reminding us and encouraging us to turn within. And also, when we are following this path, naturally, when we first read something, we understand a little, but when we try to put it into practice, we come across all sorts of difficulties. So by often referring back to Bhagavan's teachings, a lot of our of confusion and doubts that we may have can be cleared up by Bhagavan's teachings. So his teachings both guide us and encourage us. And also, why do we continue reading them? I mean, what Bhagavan himself has written, his own original writings, are just, that is the verses of Aruṇācala Stuti Panchakam, Upadeshundiya, Uludunapadu, Ekatma Panchakam, Atma-vichara, Apalapatu, some stray verses of Upadesha, and ṉeṇaveṇai. This is basically all Bhagavan has written. But in these works, everything that we need, all the guidance we need, is available. So I have been studying these works for more than 40 years now. But when I first read, I understood something. But now, obviously, I understand much more. And I continue to learn from these works. There are many of them I know almost by heart. I continue to learn from them because as we follow this path, we are able to appreciate more and more clearly the depth and profundity and the depth and that is we
everything fits in together. You mentioned in one of the calls that all of the knowledge, it fits in together very well.
Yeah. Oh yes. That's another thing. That is Bhagavan's teaching.
He's the only guru where everything fits in very well.
Yes. So Bhagavan's teachings are extremely simple, but they answer every question we may have. And as we go deeper in the practice, we get more and more from his teachings. We learn more and more. We're not learning more information. There's nothing more in terms of informational facts to learn about Bhagavan's teachings, but we come to understand them more and more clearly.
No, but have you experienced the mano nasa, as you had mentioned?
Okay.
Have you gone through that phase yourself?
If I had experienced mano nasa, and I would say I have experienced mano nasa,
then it's
the I that says I have experienced is itself the ego that needs to be destroyed. Bhagavan says in Uludunapadu, in verse 33 of Uludunapadu, saying I do not know myself or I have known myself is ground for ridicule. Why? To make oneself an object, are there two selves? Because being one is the truth, the experience of everyone. That is, there is no one who does not know themselves. We all of us are aware, I am. That is all we need to know. The problem is not that we are lacking knowledge, but we have superimposed the wrong knowledge on this true knowledge. The true knowledge, the pure awareness is I am. But we are not aware of ourselves just as I am. We're aware of ourselves as I am Michael, or I am Bandit, or whoever. So that false knowledge is what has to be removed. When that false knowledge is removed, what remains, that is what we really are. That is Brahman. Does Brahman go around saying, I have realized myself, come to me, I will teach you? Brahman is just that which is as it is. So according to Bhagavan, claiming either to be ignorant of yourself or to know yourself, both are equally ridiculous. So there are many people nowadays. If you want someone to tell you they're self-realized, don't come to me. There are plenty of people nowadays who will say, yes, I have realized. So
my question being, I completely understand what you're saying. My question being that, the path that I've taken, I'm getting a lot of knowledge, but, over the course, you have to, I don't know whether in this lifetime or in the next lifetime, you would want to achieve the final outcome, which is just realizing the self. So there is a fear that, okay, whatever I'm learning, it makes complete sense. But is this, is the outcome materializing? So that's why I wanted to ask you that you've spent 40 years. I'm so sorry. Yeah, you were saying?
When we are following Bhagavan's path, what are we achieving by following his path? That is, the natural tendency of the mind is to go outwards. That is, as Bhagavan says, ego comes into existence grasping form. In verse 25 of Ulunaptu, Urupatri undam, Urupatri nikam. Grasping form, it comes into existence. Grasping form, it stands. Urupatri undu mika ongum. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly.
I can complete your sentences now.
Yes.
I've seen so many of your
Uru
videos.
Victu Uru Patram. Leaving one form, it grasps another form. So the very nature of ego is grasping form. But ego itself is a formless phantom. What does that mean? Our mind is constantly attending to things other than ourselves. That is the nature of ego. And that inclination to attend to other things are what are called Vishaya vasanas, which are the very nature of ego. So when we are trying to follow Bhagavan's path, we're trying to turn our attention back within. At every moment in our life, we have a basic choice. Do we follow the vasanas? Do we allow ourselves to be carried away by the vasanas, or do we turn our attention back within? Every moment that we turn our attention back towards ourselves, however slightly, we are thereby weakening the Vishaya vasanas and strengthening the Sat vasana. Sat vasana means the inclination just to be as we are. So this is what we're achieving. Whether ego is going to be annihilated in this lifetime or not need not concern us. That is, we are going in the right direction. That is, slowly, we are weaning our mind off its taste to go outwards and cultivating that taste to go inwards. In other words, the Swapna Bhakti is increasing, and along with it, the Vairagya is increasing, because the two are inseparable. That is, to the extent we love to be as we are, to that extent we will lose the interest in attending to other things. So that is what we are gaining. So okay, if this body dies before the ego dies, all that we've learned will be forgotten. But the inclination to go inwards rather than going outwards will remain, and that will resume. Bhagavan himself said about his own case when in some context, when someone asked him, saying, how was it as just a young boy of 16, you were able to turn within, and Bhagavan said, "Edo vitukarai totukarai." That means something that was left incomplete previously resumed and completed itself. So, because it must have been the divine plan, because we needed Bhagavan as our guru, the divine plan was, though he was such a ripe soul, somehow he was made to take another birth in order to, as a young boy, annihilate the ego, and then for the remaining 54 years, live as the supreme Jnana Guru for all of us. That is not what remained after that death experience. Before the death experience, there was some ego was there, but was aware of itself as I am Venkataraman. When he turned his attention within, that ego was completely eradicated. So what then remained, what shone through the form, that is, we see Bhagavan as a person, but what's shining through that form is not an ego, it is that original light of pure awareness, the light of infinite awareness, infinite love, infinite happiness. That is what is shining. That is what is looking at us through the eyes of Bhagavan. So that is divine grace. But that is what as Bhagavan said, what he actually is not that external form, but we see him as. He is that which is shining as pure awareness in the heart of each and every one of us. Ariyati Tarajivara Dahavari Jiguhail Arivairami Paramatman Aruṇācala Navamaṇimālai. That's Aruṇācala Ramana is the Paramatma, the supreme spirit or supreme self or ultimate self, that is blissfully existing as Arivu, as awareness in the hearts of all, in the heart of the cave, in the cave of the heart lotus of all different jivas, beginning with Hari, beginning with the highest God down to the smallest ant. What is shining in the heart as I, that is Aruṇācala Ramana. So if we want to know him as he is, he says in the second two lines of those verse, Parivalula Muruha, that is with the heart melting with love, if we turn within and enter the cave of our heart where he dwells, the eye of awareness will be opened, and this truth will be revealed. In other words, we will be swallowed and he alone will remain. That is the implication.
Okay.
So I don't claim that I've reached the end of my journey. I'm still an aspirant on this.
But do you have mental chatter? I mean,
what?
A mental chatter is, do you have that voice, everybody has?
Yeah, of course. That is,
Okay.
what is the mental chatter? When our
The
mind is
mind.
chattering, we're thinking about one thing or another. In other words, our attention is going away from ourselves towards other things. That is that is the nature of ego. And that is why Bhagavan said effort is absolutely necessary. People say, oh, effortless, choiceless awareness. Fine. Our real nature is effortless, choiceless awareness. But now that we experience, now we have risen as ego, effort is needed in order for us to experience ourselves as effortless, choiceless awareness. Because if we allow ego to go its way, it will be constantly going outwards, wandering under the sway of its vasanas, as Bhagavan said. So the effort is needed in order to turn us our attention back within. So when we are lax in our effort, yes, the mind goes outwards and thinks about this and that and so many things to think about in this world. But all our thinking is, according to Bhagavan, totally unnecessary, because whatever is to happen is going to happen as it's going to happen. We need not worry about anything. Our only concern should be to attend to ourselves. Why we don't attend only to ourselves? Because we still have strong Vishaya Vasana. So mella, slowly, gently, we've got to withdraw our attention from other things and turn it back within.
Okay.
So I am in exactly the same position as everyone else. I don't claim to be, there's no need for me to claim to be this or that.
No
I am just a humble devotee, but I happen to be, I've caught a very infectious disease, which is the disease of love for Bhagavan and his teachings.
Which we all have.
I am happily spreading my disease here and there. I'm not observing any social distancing or anything. I'm because I'm so happy with this disease. I want other people to be equally mad with love for Bhagavan.
That's great.
But even that is my ignorance, as if there are others.
Cool. Thank you so much, Michael. I won't press forwards. I'm sure other people also want to ask a question. I just want to thank you for all your teachings, and I've read your book.
These are not my teachings. I'm only repeating what I learned from Bhagavan.
So your interpretation of Bhagavan's teachings have been really helpful in this journey of mine. Thank you so much.
Okay, right. I see someone else has hand raised, but I'll just answer one more question from email, and then I'll answer. This again is someone who wanted to remain anonymous. She's asked a number of questions. I'll try and go through them as she says, first question is, your response to when Bhagavan was attacked and he did not retaliate, is this about accepting you have done something wrong because wrong past misdeeds and they are in the right? I think what this is referring to, when thieves broke into Ramana ashram, that is in the mid-1920s, when the ashram was still a very small place, but because many visitors were coming there, some thieves got an idea, oh, this must be a rich mutt, they must have lots of money. So they, in those days, Bhagavan was living in the old hall and there were very few buildings there. So one day thieves broke in, they wasn't actually a break-in because Bhagavan's hall was always open, but they entered and they were asking, demanding money. And Bhagavan said, we don't have anything here, but whatever you want, you can take. I mean, we don't have money, but if you want to take anything, you can take whatever you want. But they were getting a bit angry because they were expecting to see bags full of money there or whatever. So they made the devotees go out one by one. And as they were going out, they beat them. And Bhagavan also received beating. They had sticks and things, they were threatening. So Bhagavan received beating. And some of the other sadhus got very angry and wanted to retaliate. Bhagavan said, they are doing their swadharma. We as sadhus, we should do our swadharma. It's their swadharma to steal and to beat people and things like that. Let them do what their thing, we'll do our thing. So Bhagavan didn't allow anyone to retaliate. Afterwards, of course, this was reported to the police, and the police came to investigate, and they arrested some people. And they brought some of those culprits before Bhagavan and asked him to identify who had beaten him. Bhagavan said, I identify the one whom I beat in a previous life. He is the one who beat me now. So what does that mean? That means, Bhagavan, whatever happens to us, it happens because what happens to us is our prarabdha. Prarabdha is a selection of the fruits of actions that we've done in the past. We have had countless births before this, so we have done countless actions. Most of those actions have never borne fruit and will never bear fruit, but they are stored in what is called sanchita. And from the sanchita, God or Guru selects which fruits we are to experience in this lifetime. So if anything happens to us, if someone beats us, that is because we beat them in some previous life. That is what Bhagavan is saying. So rather than finding fault with those who cause us harm, let us repent the fact that in the past we must have done something to harm them. So that is the lesson to be learned from that. So what this lady asked, is this about, well, what you have done something wrong because past misdeeds, and they're in the right. It doesn't mean that those who beat us or those who cause us harm, doesn't mean they're right. They're also doing their own karma. What it means is what is the attitude we should have to these things? We're not justifying people who do wrong, but we are just acknowledging the fact if anyone does wrong to us, that must be because we sometimes did some wrong to them. Supposing someone cheats us and takes our money. Maybe in the past we took money from them and that's a debt we owe them. It is sometimes said that the people to whom we owe money, they are the ones who will be born as our children and will take all our money. So, I mean, what we have, this is just a matter of acknowledging whatever we experience. It's the result of our past good or bad actions. But we shouldn't be proud. Oh, now I'm experiencing good circumstances because I must have been a very good person in my past life. It's not so simple as that. We have done so many actions in the past. Some of them are good actions, some of them are bad actions, some of them are neither particularly good nor particularly bad. What we are now experiencing as prarabdha is a selection of all those countless the fruits of countless actions that we've done. God has selected those ones which will be beneficial for us to experience in this lifetime, those that will be most conducive to our spiritual advancement, to our spiritual development, our further progress on the spiritual path. So that was her first question. The second question, Also, can this be related to when people criticize us or find fault with us? Yes, if anyone criticizes us, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be perturbed by these things. If someone criticizes us, it's the fruit of some action that we've done in the past, and we have to be grateful to those who criticize us. Sadhuam wrote a very nice verse that is, at one time there were certain disgruntled people in the town, and some even among the so-called devotees of Bhagavan, there were some who were trying to put court cases against the ashram. This is after Bhagavan's. I mean, there were court cases in Bhagavan's time, and even afterwards there were court cases. Somehow it was reported to the local revenue department, who were supposed to be investigating this, that Sadhuam had been mistreated by Ramanashram, and had been so that he was someone who had grievances against the ashram, so he could give evidence. Somehow they got this information, so the local Tahsildar and other people turned up in a jeep, and they said they had come to collect evidence against the ashram. Sadhuam said, I've got nothing against ashram, I've got no evidence to give. And they said, no, but we've heard that you were ill-treated and everything. He said, nobody's ill-treated me, I've got nothing against anyone. If I was expecting something from them, then I could say, if they haven't given me, I could say they've ill-treated me. I don't expect anything from anyone. And then they said, no, but it is said that they are spreading bad, they are maligning your character, saying bad stories about you. So isn't that grounds for grievance? And he said, is it so? Is anyone saying bad things about me? Then whoever is saying bad things about me, I am very grateful to them. And they said, no, but how can you say that? And then he wrote a verse in which he said, my thanks to those who criticize or abuse me or find fault with me, because when I was a baby, my mother cleaned my mala means my filth, my dirt, with her hand. But these people are unceasingly cleaning my mala with their tongue. That is, if someone abuses me, they're washing away my sins with their tongue. So I'm very grateful to them. So that is the attitude we should have. If someone causes us harm or abuses us or anything, this is all for our good. If someone speaks abusively or does something to harm us, what is it they dislike? What is it they are attacking? They're attacking the ego in us. So their enemy is our enemy, because our greatest enemy is our own ego. So we should Bhagavan said somewhere, I think in Guru Vachaka Kavai, but our real friends are not those who like us and appreciate us and are always ready to help us. Those people who abuse us, who dislike us, who cause us trouble, they are our real friends, because what they are attacking is the ego that they perceive in us. So since that ego is our enemy, they are our true friends. So this is the attitude we should have to all troubles that others may cause us in any way. And then the next question this lady asked is, how can we not take this personally and feel bad or defensive? If we are following Bhagavan's path, if we are trying to, what is Bhagavan's path? Bhagavan's path is a path of subsidence. We are trying to, this ego that rises to take offense and to take things personally, that ego, if we're following Bhagavan's path correctly, we should be constantly keeping an eye on this ego. That is, we should be constantly maintaining that current of self-awareness. So, but whenever this ego pops up, we'll be watching it, and then it will sink down again and hide. So we shouldn't take anything personally. Whatever happens, whether good things or bad things, they're all happening for our good. And what should be our response? Our response should be to subside more and more and more and more and more. As Bhagavan said in the last paragraph of ṇeṇaveṇai, wait a second, Evlo Kevlo Tandu, he said, Evelo kevelo tandu nadikiromo, avelo kavelo namayundu. That means to the extent to which sinking low we behave, to that extent it is good. So we need to subside more and more and more. That is our dharma. That is the dharma Bhagavan taught the sadhus when the thieves came and they wanted to retaliate. No, we are sadhus. Our dharma is to subside, to sink lower and lower and lower. So that is, as Sadhguru often used to say, humility is divinity. Bhagavan often used to praise humility as the highest of all qualities. But what is humility? It's nothing but the subsidence of ego. So long as we feel I am humble, we are not humble. When we don't even feel we are humble, that is true humility. And then the next question this lady asks is, should we be putting weight on other people's opinions or judgments for our sense of worth, or trusting true self is right, regardless of what other people say? That is, if other people criticize us, we should always be ready to consider whether what they say is right. I mean, none of us are perfect. So sometimes people may see faults in us that we don't see in ourselves. So we should always be willing to consider, if someone finds fault with us, yes, maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong? And we should reflect over. But we shouldn't depend on others' judgment for our sense of worth. We have to have, that is, in the heart of each one of us, there is that light of pure awareness, shiny as I am. That is what illumines our mind. And that is what enables us to judge what is right and what is wrong. Sometimes we may misjudge. Sometimes we may do something that is wrong. And later we may recognize, oh yes, what I did then was wrong. And then we should be freely ready to admit, yes, sorry, I did wrong. It was a mistake on my part. I shouldn't have done like that. So we can listen to the opinions of others in order to take to see if there's any truth in what they say. And if there's truth in what they say, freely admit it. If what they say is false, even then we can admit it if it helps us to subside, because our only dharma is to subside more and more and more. If we are intent on subsiding, if people have unfairly judge us, we will not be perturbed by that. Okay, yes, what they say may not be true, but still, this is a good opportunity for me to subside and be more and more humble. So we shouldn't be depending on the opinions of others. We shouldn't be looking for the good opinion of others in order to feel we're a good person. Our aim is to subside more and more. And if someone expresses a bad opinion about us, we should be ready to consider, yes, maybe there's justification. Even if I don't see it like that, from their perspective, what I did seemed to be wrong. So yes, let me apologize for that or whatever. The next question is, also, do people have faults, or are we faultless in true self? Well, our real nature is faultless, but when we rise as ego, yes, we have so many faults. So we should not be critical, question mark. No, we shouldn't be critical of others. And then, is it a question of there is no problem because there is no person? So we relate to what's real, true self, rather than perceived fault. That is, we can't say there's no person. Of course, when we look outwards, there are so many people. But what we need to see, as Bhagavan said in this, in the previous paragraph of ṉeṇaveṇai, in the 19th paragraph, he says, there are not two minds, a good mind and a bad mind. That implies there are not two kinds of mind. Some people have good mind, some people have bad mind. It's not like that. Bhagavan says mind is only one. Only vasanas are of two kinds, namely subha and asubha. Subha means agreeable or good or virtuous. Asubha means disagreeable, wicked or harmful or bad. So the mind is neutral. It's the vasanas of a problem. So and then he goes on to say, when the mind is under the sway of subhavasanas, it is said to be a good mind, and when it is under the sway of asubhavasanas, a bad mind. So it's when we dislike someone, we need to see that in everyone, it is the same eye that is shining in everyone. It is the people who seem to be bad is because their mind is under the sway of bad vasanas. And people who seem to be good is because their mind is under the sway of good vasanas. It's like the vasanas of a problem. And then Bhagavan says, however bad other people may appear to be, disliking them is not proper. Likes and dislikes are both fit to be disliked. That is, if we dislike someone, the problem lies in us. That is, that person is as they are, whether good or bad, they are as they are. If we were free of likes and dislikes, we wouldn't be perturbed by however bad other people were. People who came to Bhagavan, there were all sorts of people. Not all people who came to Bhagavan and spent time in his company were necessarily good people. There were all sorts of bad people also came. But Bhagavan's love was equal for all, because he was seeing beyond the vasanas, beyond the external appearance, to what is real, which is the I am, which is shining in the heart of each and every one of them. So Bhagavan's love was equal to all, to the low and the high, the good and the bad, creatures of all forms. When the hornets came out, when he disturbed hornets unnecessarily and accidentally, he allowed them to sting his thigh because he felt compassion for them. He had disturbed them, so let them take out their rage on him. So he had so much equal love for those hornets that he had for each and every one of us, because he doesn't love us as the person that we take ourselves to be. He loves us as himself, because he doesn't see us as a person. He sees us as what we really are. And by his seeing us as what we really are, he enables us to see ourselves as we really are. So that is the supreme love and supreme compassion of Bhagavan. And then there are a few other questions in this. In this connection, were there any teachings on forgiveness in relation to yourself or other people, or what other people do to you? Yes, we can see from Bhagavan, well, we can't even say Bhagavan forgave, because in Bhagavan's view, he sees only what is the reality in people. So whatever wrong people did to Bhagavan, he would never hold a grudge against them. Perumal Swami put court cases against Bhagavan, claiming that he was the rightful manager of ashram and Bhagavan was siding with his brother. Bhagavan never resented it at all. Bhagavan said, let him, and they even wrote a book about Bhagavan, slandering Bhagavan. That is not Perumal Swami himself, because he wasn't very educated, but some people who were supporting him, they wrote a book in his name, slandering Bhagavan. And when some devotees were upset about it, Bhagavan said, no, let them write more and let them publish it. And he even suggested that the ashram could distribute the book. But he said, if more false things are said about me, less people will come here and I'll be very peaceful. So Bhagavan had no resentment towards anything. And at one point, when Perumal Swami lost a court case in one of the lower courts, he came to Bhagavan and he said, you may have won this case, but I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to take you to the High Court. I'm even going to take you to the highest court in the land. What can you do? If you're God as you claim to be, you can put me in hell, but still I will not leave you. And Bhagavan said, even if you go to hell, I will not leave you. Why? Because Bhagavan is that which is shining in Perumal Swami's eye. So how can the eye ever leave him? So even if we go to hell, Bhagavan is always there with us. So such is the love. And I mean, this is beyond forgiveness. Many things we learn from Bhagavan, not from just what he wrote and what he lived. Bhagavan lived, as I say, what is, even to describe it as forgiveness, because forgiveness means you see that a wrong has been done to you, but you forgive it. But Bhagavan never sees any wrong. He doesn't see any wrong, because in his view, all is only himself. So Bhagavan is beyond forgiveness, because he cannot see any wrong in anything. So Yeah, that is the highest teaching. We shouldn't see the wrong in others. What is the root of all problems? It's our rising as ego. So if we're to find fault with anyone, we find fault with, why should I rise and take myself to be this person and then be offended when people criticize this person or do harm to this person? Let me subside back into the heart and surrender myself completely. Then the next question is, when you get your heart broken, is that real, or should we be focusing on true self rather than depending on others for love? And that person is not real anyway. Yes, we should always be focusing on our real self. That is, we should always be turning our attention within. But so long as we rise as ego, we have likes, dislikes, and certain people we like and certain people we dislike, and sometimes we fall in love with people, and if that love isn't returned, we feel heartbroken. All these things, these are all conditions, but we will go through so long as we allow our attention to go outwards, allow our attention to go away from ourselves towards other things. If we turn our attention back within, then there will be no room for any broken heart. But so long as we allow our attention to go outwards, why do we allow our attention to go outwards? Because we're seeking happiness outside ourselves. We think if this person loves me, then I'll be happy. When that person doesn't love us, we feel unhappy, we feel heartbroken. So this is, we should learn from all these things, but we shouldn't depend on others for our love, for our happiness. We should seek the happiness that is always in our heart. And the person, yes, the person is not real, but why this person I take myself to be seems to be real, and why all other people seem to be real? What is actually real is only I. When I take myself to be a certain person, that person seems to be real. And since this person seems to be real, all other people seem to be real. So the fault lies not with the person. The fault lies with the I that rises and says and is aware of itself as I am this person. That I is ego. That is what we need to investigate and surrender. We surrender it by investigating it, because when we turn within to investigate who am I, who am aware of myself as I am Michael or I am whoever, when we turn to face that I, it subsides back into its source. That is the secret of Bhagavan's teachings. But all problems caused by ego arise only when we allow our attention to go outwards, because we're thereby feeding ego. Turn our attention back towards ourselves, ego will thereby subside. If thought, it takes flight, as he says in verse 25 of Ulunaptu. Tedina lotum pidicum. And then there are just two more questions. I'll just finish these off. Please, can you explain about staying in the moment here and now, and where there are no worries, rather than focusing on what went on in past or future, instead of be present with self now? That is, past and future are thoughts that occurred to us now. But even, what do we mean when we say now? Generally, we mean whatever is happening at this present moment, that is now. But Bhagavan has analyzed time much more deeply. Bhagavan says, what is actually present now is not any happening. It is only I. Because for something to happen, you need a passage of time. Without a passage of time, without a duration of time, all change takes place in a certain duration of time. But what is the present moment? The present moment is an infinitesimally tiny moment. One moment before is past. One moment ahead is future. So what is that? What is that precise present moment? If we try to see what is that precise present moment, what is it that makes the present moment seem present? It's the time where we are present, that is the present moment. The place where we are present, that is the present place, that is here. So here and now is determined only by the presence of ourself. So to find the exact present moment, we need to turn to look at ourselves. In the precise present moment, in that infinitesimally small gap between the past and the future, what is present is only I. No action, no change. Because action and change require time. They require the flow of time. But what is ever present is only I. So in order to stay in the present moment, we need to cling firmly only to I. So long as we allow our attention to go away from ourselves, we see things constantly changing. We're caught up in the flow of time. When we turn our attention back towards ourselves, then only do we stand in the ever-present present moment, which is I. And then finally, when there's only one mind, not two, is that how we remain neutral, indifferent to when life goes well and when things go wrong? That is, things going well and things going wrong, who judges? It's only as ego. The things we like, we say, life is going well. Things we dislike, things are going wrong now. It's all what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, what is favorable condition or unfavorable condition. It's all determined by our own likes and dislikes. Who is this I who has all these likes and dislikes? As Bhagavan says, likes and dislikes are both to be disliked. How do we free ourselves from likes and dislikes? By investigating the I who has the likes and dislikes. Likes and dislikes arise when we face outwards. When we turn back within, ego subsides, and along with it, the likes and dislikes subside with it. So it's only by turning within that we can go beyond these likes and dislikes and thereby remain unaffected by whatever may happen. And then finally, approval or disapproval, what does it matter? Exactly, what does it matter? Our only concern, if our only concern is to turn within and surrender to us, to surrender ourselves to what we really are, in other words, to our own real nature, to what is called God or Guru, if that is our aim, why should we be concerned about whether others approve us or approve of us or disapprove of us? The approval or disapproval of others should be of no concern of ours. There will be sometimes people who will praise us, even though we know very well we're unworthy of praise. There will be other people who blame us. We may or may not deserve that blame, but neither should concern us. Our only concern should be to turn within and thereby sink back into the heart. That should be our only concern. If we make that our aim in life, then nothing external, whatever happens externally, will not affect us, will not concern us in the least. Ash, I see you have your hand raised. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, Michael. Thank you for taking my question. I wrote it down just to make sure I'm concise and to the point. Sadhu Om said, clinging to the consciousness I and thereby acquiring a deeper and deeper intensity of concentration upon it is diving deep within. Keeping this in mind from the practitioner's point of view, how would the inward practice and experience, both internal and external, of self-attention evolve as the progression continues from 1 degree to 180 degrees? That is the complete ego annihilation.
The more keenly we attend to ourselves, the more other things withdraw into the background of our awareness, so to speak. That is the greater the number of, to put it in a metaphorical way, the greater the number of degrees we turn towards ourselves, we are thereby turning our back on other things. So the depth and intensity of our self-attentiveness is indicated by the extent to which we cease to be aware of other things and aware only of I. However, we shouldn't be trying to estimate how deep we are going, because then our attention is on something. Our only concern should be to attend to ourselves. And the more keenly and vigilant and intensely we attend to ourselves, the more other things will naturally withdraw into the background. If we're trying to see, have all other things slipped to the background, then we bring them into the foreground. So the only thing we should be concerned about is attending to ourselves. How this is in experience really cannot be said in words. That is, we all know I am, but can you describe an experience? Can you describe in words what it is to be aware I am? No, we cannot. That is, because we all feel I am, when someone says, yes, I'm aware that I am, we know what they mean. But we cannot, that fundamental awareness I am cannot be described. So when we are trying to attend to ourselves, we are trying to attend only to that fundamental awareness I am. So how can we describe it? If there's anything to describe, our attention is going away from ourselves, because what is beyond description, what is aṇṇā here, cannot be captured in words, is only that fundamental awareness I am. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Michael, like I've read also in some places that as these the sages, they progress along, initially it's compared to like a light beam, right? Initially, since this awareness is basically that our true nature, but because it is mixed like as you say, the knot, right, which is a combination of the consciousness as well as all the stuff that is the ego, the illusion stuff. We're not totally aware of ourselves as we truly are. So like a small beam, when you small beam that comes into the house, initially it is like that. But then as you progress along in the self-attention, that small beam then it expands, and it comes to the point where it gets bigger and bigger, and then that's all there is. Right? So is as we go along, do we experience that same thing, that okay, now we are expanding and comes to a point where that is only, and the ego is totally annihilated?
That is, ego is not totally annihilated till the last minute. I think what you're referring to is an analogy that Sadhu Om gives of outside there's bright sunshine, but there's a mirror but is reflecting the sunshine, and it reflects in through a small opening into a dark room. So we are in the dark room. If we want to find our way, or say a dark tunnel, we want to find our way out of the dark tunnel, we need to follow that small ray of light. The more we follow that ray of light, the closer we come to the entrance of the tunnel. And so the light will be getting brighter and brighter as we go along. Finally, when we go out into the open, there's only sunlight. So that is the point where the ego is swallowed. So as we progress on this path, we experience a greater and greater degree of clarity of self-awareness. That is, we become more aware of ourself as something other than just these adjuncts, these 5 sheaths that we now take ourselves to be. We become more and more clearly aware of ourselves as something independent of these things. Still, we are experiencing these things as I, but slowly, so it's becoming more and more clear to us that that these things are objects. I is the subject. So it's very difficult to put it in words, but there is. We do experience greater clarity of self-awareness, that we become more clearly aware of ourselves as we actually are. Of course, we are not totally aware of ourselves as we actually are, so long as so long as there's ego, because ego is always aware of itself as I am this adjunct. But when we go deeper and deeper within, these adjuncts are, so to speak, they're dropping off. They become less substantial. The person we seem to be seems less real, less substantial. It's just an appearance, a fleeting phantom. So it's, as I say, it's very difficult to put these things into words, but if we are following Bhagavan's path, everything becomes clearer, and then there's no need to ask all these questions, because that is, Bhagavan said, this is the path of light. We are following the light, the original light, the light of pure awareness. That is now what initially we are following ego, but ego is just a reflection of that light of pure awareness. So, but this ego will unfail, if we keep our attention on this ego, it will unfailingly lead us back to the source. If you want to find the rope, what do you have to look at? You look at the snake very carefully. The more carefully you look at the snake, the closer you come to the rope, the closer you come to seeing the rope as it is. So whereas the snake seems very, very real at first, when we look at it more closely, yes, it still looks like a snake, but maybe it's not a snake. Maybe it is a rope. So that is, I don't know, the words fail, but I'm just trying in a clumsy way to, somehow it's clear when we're putting it into practice, just very difficult to put it adequately into words.
Thank you, Michael. That's what you say is so very true, because as we have been reading and putting this into practice, I find personally that, our thinking and our experiences all evolve. And the key thing is to put it into practice, because then you start to experience more and more. But at the same time, there's always this desire to find out, where are we along the path, right? I mean, are we progressing? Because there are only the pointers are basically are an illusion. So the illusion cannot. It's like a map is not the territory, right? So
yes. So long as we are concerned about how far we are along the path, we are missing the point. The point is to see what we are here and now. Yes, there is a path. Because why is there a path? Because we are not able to shed all our desires, attachments, and the root of them all, the ego. We're not able to shed them all immediately. We need to slowly wean our mind off its inclination to go outwards. So in that sense, there is a path. But the path is a path to where? For where we always are, that we are ever present. So it's trying to estimate how close we are to the annihilation of ego. It's again giving a reality to something other than ourselves. When we reach our goal, we will find there never was any ego at all. So let us not be concerned about how close this ego is to eradication. Is there an ego here and now? Is there an ego? Is there any such thing as ego at all? How to investigate that? We have to look at ourselves. The more we look at ourselves, the more this ego takes flight, as Bhagavan says. The more we look closely at ourselves, the less we can find any such thing as ego. We seem to be ego so long as we're looking at other things. But when we look back at ourselves, we can't find any such thing. So that our only concern should be not about how far we are or how near we are or when is ego going to be annihilated. What am I here and now? Only when we are tending to ourselves here and now are we following the path. So long as we're thinking about the future, is it 1 year or 2 years or 10 lives or whatever, we are thinking of things other than ourselves. Bhagavan says, don't think of the past and future. Be in the present. That means attend only to I.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, it's very encouraging, right? Because it's so simple that sometimes we don't realize it. It's so simple. The key is just self-attention, because by doing that, you build bhakti and you also have ragya, because what you give attention to grows. So if you give attention to self-attention, then the attention is removed from the stuff and the illusion and everything else. So you're thereby just weaning away from it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter of weaning our mind off its interest, its inclination to go towards other things.
So finally, then I think just it's the grace that takes the final step to annihilate everything.
Bhagavan said, grace is the beginning, the middle, and the end. That is, it is grace that draws us to this path. Why are we following this? Something has attracted us to Bhagavan. That is his grace. It is, what is it that motivates us to keep on making this effort? Rather than allowing our mind to go outwards, we keep on trying to turn it within. That is only grace that is motivating us. And finally, the grace will swallow us. That's why Bhagavan said, grace is the beginning, the middle, and the end. Even the effort we make is only by his grace. We couldn't even make effort in this path without his grace. And what is his grace? It is the infinite love that he has for us as himself. So we have to lose ourselves in that love, in that grace. That grace has to swallow us.
Thank you, Michael. And one final thing I wanted to say is that I find it so encouraging personally that what Bhagavan said, that once he glances on us, or he's not going to leave us, right? Because there's so much feeling of unworthiness that we can't do this on our own, right? But to know that once he has got us, he will not leave us, and we are assured that we will make it.
Yes. However, he adds, but it is necessary to follow unfailingly the path shown by Guru. So he will certainly save us, but we have to cooperate. We have to yield ourselves to him. His grace will do everything. But if we allow our attention to go outwards, we are obstructing his grace. We need to yield ourselves to it by turning our attention within. He will do everything else.
Perfect, Michael. Thank you so much for patiently answering my question. Thank you.
It's all Bhagavan's doing, not mine. The next question I was asked by email, again, this is an anonymous one. I won't read the full thing, but it's someone who's describing a situation that is, it seems to be a young person. His family, his parents in particular, are putting pressure on him to take a very large mortgage and buy a new house, 1.5 crores. That means more than $200,000. So he's not at all inclined to do it. What he says is, I have no interest in this, and I don't want to get stuck my whole life in paying the mortgage. Again, what is the use of this when you know as soon as you purchase this, another desire will spring and there's no settling? With this situation, my parents are very rude to me at times, and they make sarcastic comments which hurt deeply when they are made by one's own family. They sometimes point out, what is the use of such a son when he can't fulfill his parents' desires? It makes me realize the futility of this life. No matter how close the relationship is, if you don't fulfill their needs or desires, you're nobody. With that said, I have one desire, and that is to move to Tiruvannāmalai in the next couple of years. I need to make myself capable financially for that. I know I should not attach myself to this desire also, but I need to put in my effort also, right? I'm aware of the fact that external events in our life are already decided and there is no control over them. However, when these situations are happening with your close ones and it's a daily drama, I find it very hard to concentrate on Bhagavan's teachings. I sometimes get the urge to consider Bhagavan's teaching, or it's necessary to consider this world a dream. However, I take a step back when my parents tear up. I don't know what to do. Is it our primary responsibility to fulfill our parents' needs or desires? Should I just be unconcerned about things that shouldn't be paid attention to, even if they are from your close ones? That is, as you say, whatever is to happen will happen. If it is your destiny to get a mortgage and to pay off that, spend 30 years working to pay off that mortgage, that is your destiny. You won't be able to avoid that. Even if you want to avoid it, you can't avoid it. If it is your destiny just to save up a little money and move to Tiruvannāmalai, that will happen. That cannot be avoided. Whatever your parents' desires may be to the opposite, what will happen will happen. When Bhagavan's mother wanted him to return to Madurai, she pleaded with him. She said, you can continue your meditation or whatever you're doing, you can do it at home, but at least be at home so I can feed you and take care of you. That was her wish as a mother. But what Bhagavan said is, according to the prarabdha of each one, he who is for that means God or Guru, being in the heart of each of them will make them act. So we will be prompted to act according to our destiny. That doesn't mean all our actions are according to destiny, but those actions that are necessary in order for our destiny to fructify, those actions will be made to do. If it is your destiny to spend 30 years paying for a mortgage and to end up the owner of a very expensive house, you will be made to do that, even if you don't want to. If it is your destiny, on the other hand, not to do that, but just save up a little money and move to Tiruvannāmalai and live in a rented room or whatever, that will happen. It's all these things are determined by prarabdha. what our only concern should be to subside within, because if we allow our ego to come outwards, we will then wander under the sway of our vasanas, and we'll be trying to do so many things which may or may not be our destiny, but we are unnecessarily creating karma and also suffering for ourselves, because trying to achieve things and working hard, all this is unnecessary. Bhagavan says, you're traveling on the train, leave the whole burden to the train. The train, whether you carry the burden on your head or put it on the luggage rack, the train is carrying the burden anyway. So leave it to a train. So all concern about these things we should leave to Bhagavan. Yes, it is very upsetting when one's parents have unjustified expectations. That is, no parent has that is, as children, naturally we need to take care of our parents. We need to provide for their basic needs. But if our parents are motivated not by just needs, but by greed, then we don't have to satisfy their greed. If our parents want us to satisfy their greed, we are under no obligation to do that. We know from Bhagavan, even if you buy this house, if they're greedy, they're not going to be satisfied. Whatever you do for them, they're not going to be satisfied. They'll always want more, want more. That is the nature of greed. So we need to, the best thing you can do for your parents is to set them an example. That is, by being unconcerned about all these things, you can teach them that these things are not, then these are not worthy aims. Acquiring, amassing wealth, acquiring property, for some people that may be the sole aim of their life. But having come to Bhagavan, we know all these things are worthless. Even if you amass property and wealth, none of these things last. They're all, it can last as long as the body, that's all, if that. So it's not worth seeking these things, and particularly when you don't have any inclination to do so, you shouldn't allow you need not allow yourself to be driven. However, if it is your destiny, somehow or other your parents will prevail, and well, seemingly prevail, but it will prevail only because it's your destiny, not because of the strength of their will. Their will can never overcome destiny. They have their destiny, you have your destiny. Leave it all to Bhagavan. Let things happen in their own way. So if you think it is good to move to Tiruvannamalai, and then use your own judgment. Do what you think is good. But whatever be the outcome, if you want to move to Tiruvannamalai, but it turns out you're not able to for one reason or another, that is also Bhagavan's will. As Krishna said in the Gita, you have the right to the action, not to the fruit thereof. So if you believe something is good, it's reasonable to work for that, but not to be attached to the outcome of your efforts. But the more you can be unconcerned, the better. Because if it is your destiny to move to Tiruvannamalai, you'll anyway be prompted to do whatever is necessary for you to move to Tiruvannamalai. So if we really want to follow Bhagavan's teachings, our only aim should be to turn our attention more and more within, and thereby allow things to happen as they are to happen. Whether we allow them to happen as they are to happen or not, they are going to happen as they're going to happen. So there's no point in concerning ourselves with these things. That's what Bhagavan taught us through that note he wrote for his mother. What is to happen is going to happen. What is not going to happen is not going to happen. However much effort we make to make things happen that are not going to happen, or to prevent things that are going to happen. So leave everything to him. Be unconcerned. And about your parents, when they say hurtful things, who is the one who is feeling hurt? Investigate that. Don't be concerned about the hurtful things they say. Be concerned about who is the one who feels hurt. Otherwise, turn your attention within. So I hope that adequately answers that question. And then, Catherine, you have your hand raised. Catherine, would you like to ask your question?
Hi,
Hi.
It's Katie. I don't know why it's come up as Catherine.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Katie. Yes.
Yeah, I was reading a quote in well, it's from the Maharshi's Gospel.
Yes.
And it says the ego in its purity is experienced in the intervals between two states or between two thoughts. The ego is like the worm which leaves one hold only after it catches another. Its true nature is known when it is out of contact with objects or thoughts. You should realize this interval as the abiding, unchanging reality, your true being, through the conviction gained by the study of the three states. I wonder if you could talk about what our, I know that that's to say our, but what the experience of the state between the two states would be experienced as in between sleep and waking, or waking and dream.
Right. The problem with books of dialogues of Bhagavan's answer to questions, they were recorded by others, so they may not be the exact words of Bhagavan. However, this is more, what is said there is more or less what Bhagavan is saying in verse 25 of Ulludunapadu. That is, when he uses that analogy of the worm, it's a particular type of worm in South India. You get it. When it moves, it can hold on with the front and the back. So when it moves the back close to the front, and therefore it forms an arch, and then it goes up and moves like that. So that's the way it moves. So Bhagavan uses that as an analogy. That is, as he says in verse 25 of Ulludunapadu, Uruvittu Urupatram, leaving one form, it grasps another form. So the very nature of ego is to grasp forms. But ego, as Bhagavan says in that verse, is a formless phantom. So it seems to exist only when it grasps forms. When it doesn't grasp any form, then it exists in its pure state. But its pure state, it is not ego. It is pure awareness. So though Bhagavan, as I say, I don't know how accurately that's recorded, but when he said the ego in its pure state, what is the ego in its pure state?
Yeah.
It's not ego at all. It is just for pure awareness. Ego is ego only when it grasps forms. If we want to know what we really are, we need to, as he said, between the gap between two thoughts. What is that gap between two thoughts? The nature of ego, leaving one thought, it's going to grasp another thought. So but when we turn our attention back to ourselves, ego subsides. And the more ego subsides, the more closer we come to experiencing the pure awareness that we actually are. So that is, I think, what is meant there by the gap between two thoughts. Because normally one thought, that is the nature of thought. Ego is jumping from one thought to another thought to another thought. It never actually lets go of it. That is, leaving one form, it grasps another form. There's no gap between. Normally, there's an unbroken succession of thoughts. But when we turn our attention back within, ego subsides, and therefore that flow of thought, which exists only in the view of ego, subsides along with it.
So is there a difference between the gap between thoughts and what it mentions about the gap between states?
Again, I don't know how accurately this has been recorded, but I think it's easiest just to understand it in the simple terms in which Bhagavan's expressed it in Ulludunapadu. That is, what we actually are is pure awareness. Somehow some spurious entity called I, named ego, has risen, and whenever it rises, it grasps the form of a body as itself, and therefore through the five senses, it's grasping other forms. This is the nature of ego. When we don't have to wait for a gap between two thoughts or for a gap between two states. What we actually are is here and now. We need to turn within and hold on to that as much as possible here and now. That will lead us to the infinite gap, the eternal gap. And it's not a gap at all, because when we know what we actually are, we'll know there never was any ego. And since there never was any ego, there never were any thoughts or any phenomena or any world or anything. There's just that pure awareness, Satchitananda. That is what we actually...
It's a bit misleading to try and experience the state between two states. Then you should...
I don't know. To me, it seems, because as soon as we're looking for a gap between two thoughts or a gap between two states, we're looking for... that seems to suggest something other than ourself. But what we should be looking at is only ourself. We shouldn't be concerned about thoughts or about states at all. Who am I? That's our only aim. But I don't know, Bhagavan may have given an explanation which may have been suitable to a particular person at a particular time. And it may or may not have been recorded accurately. We can never be absolutely sure about these things. So, but what he has written in his own works, in ṇeṇaveṉai and Ulludunapta and such works, is crystal clear. It leaves no room for doubt. So
So you would say to read those.
Yes, but Maharshi's Gospel is a useful book, but we don't, if something in there is not clear to us, let us just leave it. We don't have to be too concerned about what isn't clear. What is always clear is I am. That's all we need to cling to.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you very much, Michael.
Right. Fran, I'll answer your question in a minute. I'll just answer one more question I've been asked by email. The next question is asked by Asha, but it's not very clear. What he or she says is, nowadays the body goes to sleep, but there is no I, so-called, who sleeps and who wakes up. This is not very clear, because there is always, the one thing that always exists is I. That is, the pure awareness I is the background in which waking, dream, and sleep appear. Actually, sleep is not an appearance. Waking and dream are the appearances. The absence of any appearance is what we call sleep. So the pure awareness I am is like the screen. On this screen of I am, waking and dream appear, and when they don't appear, that is the state we call sleep. So I is always there. However, when waking and dream appear, we are not experiencing I in its purity. We're experiencing it mixed with adjuncts. That adjunct mixed I is what is called ego. That doesn't mean there are two I's. There's only one I, but it seems to be something other than what it is. There are not two objects there, a rope and a snake. When the rope is misperceived, it seems to be a snake. Likewise, when I is misperceived, it seems to be ego. So when we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are, we mistake ourselves to be ego, which is aware of itself as I am this body. So that ego is present only in waking and dream. It disappears in sleep. But now we have risen as ego. We clearly remember I slept. Someone sent me said that they watched a video where someone said it's a lie to say I slept, because the ego wasn't there in sleep. So to say I slept is false. But the one in the waking state who says I slept is ego. To understand this, we need to understand the nature of ego. Ego is sometimes said to be abhimanam. Abhimanam means attachment, or more correctly, it means appropriation. That is, as ego, we appropriate two things. Firstly, we appropriate the form of the body as I. Secondly, we appropriate the awareness I. That is, ego is neither the pure awareness I, nor is it the body. But it appropriates both and takes it and says, I am this body. So just like the body is not what we actually are, not what ego actually is, ego is also not actually that pure I. It's something that appears between the two, as Bhagavan says. Obviously, but between there he uses metaphorically. So that means the pure I is just as it is. It doesn't rise. Satchitudiyadya, as he says in verse 24 of Ulunapus, that being awareness doesn't rise. The body isn't aware of itself as I, but some false entity arises between these two and it is aware of itself as I am this body. So it's usurped the awareness I and the body, and it's mixed the two together. So that is the nature of ego. It's appropriating things that are not itself. But if we turn back to investigate what is this ego, in order to investigate what is this ego, we have to leave the body and try to know what is this I. When we know what is this I, we find there never was any such thing as ego. There is only I. So it's not correct to say, but there's no I who sleeps there. That is, there is a background I which is ever existing. That is what we actually are. That is not what we now mistake us, that is the ego that is now aware of itself as I am this body. That is not what we actually are, but it is an appearance of what we actually are. That is the rope is not a snake, but the snake is a rope. Likewise, pure awareness is not ego, but ego is nothing other than pure awareness. So if we investigate this ego, just like if you look carefully at the snake, you see it's only a rope. If we keenly investigate or keenly attend to this ego, we find it is just pure awareness and the whole problem is solved. I don't know, Asha, are you there? Do you want the rest of your...
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Michael.
Yeah. Do you want to clarify more the rest of your questions?
Oh, yes. The one
what I said, was that helpful?
Yes, it was really helpful because like 1 year before, when I read some of his books, Bhagavan's books, like Words of Grace, Who Am I was only having the knowledge as a person, like how we get the knowledge when we read the books about these, who am I? Because these questions had already arisen when I was like 10 years back, that who am I, like who is this Asha, and like where am I going to go after this body dies? Because one day at around 2 o'clock in the night, few months ago, I just woke up and I just sat and I just asked this question. There was nobody in the room, but I don't know whom I asked to, but then I just asked this question that what will happen if this body goes away, and then actually who am I and what am I doing here? Like I really wanted to know, like, am I really this body, this Asha, whoever you kept the name, whoever this person is, am I this body, or who am I actually? I just want to know that. So from that time, when I got some experiential, I wanted to get it as experiential, not just the knowledge, then to know who am I. So I was looking something which was outside. That means to say that the longing, the longing that I had was something not outside. It was actually inside. So I had to turn inside. So I started analyzing in each and every activity by my. It just happened. I didn't do it as a work or something separately. It just happened. Whenever I used to whenever I used to get a thought, I just used to go into the source of the thought. From where is it coming? Who is getting the thought? Can I find the Asha? Where is this Asha who is getting? Is this the Asha who is getting the thought? When I went to take an X-ray a few months ago, I don't know. I was weird. The nurse was feeling like she just smiled. I just asked her that if my name was not mentioned in this X-ray sheet, below the X-ray sheet, will you come to know with this is Asha's X-ray? Can you find her anywhere in this X-ray? So she just smiled. She said, wow, that was a good question. Even I never thought about it. So it's like everywhere it just sprouts. I don't do it myself. I know this Asha is not doing it. The grace is doing it because it's unveiling of the consciousness itself. So for me, this was the question, and the time, does time really exist? The one thing that's what experientially I understood is there is only this now. Like whatever happened and a minute back, it was in the now. Whatever is happening is now. What is going to happen is also now. So there is no past, there is no future. These things, experiential things that grace has just is unveiling this everything. It was something which was scary at times for me. Like, am I normal or am I crazy? I don't remember what I had for the breakfast. But yes, I am studying whatever is happening. I remember what I studied. It says grace. I have to write the exam. But this petty things like what I had in the morning, or somebody shouted at me, or somebody said bad words to this person, Asha. These things, it just goes away. It doesn't remain. It doesn't affect the peace and the serenity of the consciousness. It doesn't. So I went to the doctor, in fact, just a few months back, to just check the family doctor that am I okay, or do I have some other problem, or do I have a problem of forgetting? Am I getting Alzheimer's? Like I was just scared. He did all the checkups. He said, no, you are active. Your brain is all okay. Don't worry. You are not forgetting. You're not getting any, you're not having the problem of memory loss or anything. You're okay. So these questions were in me, and I just wanted to check with you, Michael, that the main thing that is, that is troubling from inside. It is not, I know it is not. We have still. You can't be in the blissful state 24/7 because you might have even conflicts at work, difficulty dealing with relationships, some underlying traumas that come to the surface. But these are thinning, day by day. This doesn't have any, it is not leaving any footprints or veil the light of the self. So that is okay. But this feeling, how do I adapt to this in the living in the so-called millions of worlds, after knowing the reality, after understanding the peace, after understanding the true nature? How do I, how there is a huge emptiness, there is a space which cannot be expressed in words. How do I relate with the people, other people? How to live all the realms of our life with that is consistent with an expression of this understanding? How do I do that?
Okay, there are a few points there. Firstly, what you should be looking for is not for Asha. Asha is the name of a person. That person is not what you actually are. What we need to investigate is ego. Ego is not the person. Ego is the I that is aware of itself as I am this person, I am Asha. So it's only that I we need to investigate. That I, that is ego. It's not what we actually are, because what we actually are is never aware of itself as I am Asha. But that I, if you attend to that ego, it will subside back into the source from which it rose. The source from which it rose, that is what you actually are. That is what I actually is. So ego is like, Bhagavan sometimes said, it's like the scent of the scent of the master. The dog, once it found the scent of the master, it holds on to the scent of the master, follows it, and it will certainly reach its master. Likewise, if we hold on to this ego, it will lead us back to its source, because the more we attend to ego, the more ego will subside. And when ego subsides, but when we say that, it sounds like ego is something other than ourselves. Ego is actually ourselves. That is, it is what we now seem to be. So when we withdraw our attention from other things, from Asha and from all the things concerned with Asha, and turn our attention back just to I, who am I, this ego will begin to, that is, we as ego will begin to subside. Where do we subside? Into what we actually are, which is the pure awareness I am. Regarding the memory of what you have for breakfast or whatever, what we remember is the things that concern us. There are so many things that happen in our life. That is, sometimes we walk from one place to another. And when we reach at our destination, we can't remember anything about whether was there a lot of traffic when I crossed the road? I must have crossed the road safely because I'm here now. We can't even remember crossing the road, because that is, the minimal attention was on those things. We did what needed to be done, but we were thinking other thoughts. So most of our life, we are thinking unnecessary thoughts. We're not attending to each and every action we do because it's not necessary. Most things just go on automatically. But instead of attending to other thoughts, if we attend to I, that is the best thing of all, because then we won't be having unnecessary thoughts about other things. But whatever is to be done will happen as it's to be done, all according to prarabdha. So our only concern should be to attend to I. And whether you remember things or not remember things, those are all aṇṇā. They're all things other than yourself. Your job is only to attend to yourself. If you attend to yourself, everything else will take care of itself. Regarding emptiness, it is not an emptiness, because whatever you experience, you are there, and you are not emptiness. You are fullness. You are the fullness of pure awareness of Satchidananda.
Yeah,
you're the Paripurna Vastu.
Yeah, Michael, but I don't have any, like I don't know how to express this, but there is absence of thoughts. There is not many thoughts. Usually there would be range of thoughts coming in about what happened to this person, or what happened this, or what about the conflict or the fight, or blah blah blah. So many thoughts. It's like you just put a button on and then it flashes out. But it's empty. I was scared because there is shortage of thoughts. So I started getting scary, like the person probably.
Are you scared to go to sleep?
No, I'm very peaceful and very happy when I sleep.
Because in sleep there are no thoughts. So the fear you have of that thoughtless state is itself a thought. Not only is that fear a thought, but one to whom the thought occurs, that fear occurs, that is ego, that is also a thought. So we are never actually in a thoughtless state so long as ego is there. So long as we're aware of anything other than ourselves, we are still in the realm of thought. In sleep, ego subsides, so thought comes to an end, and we're very happy and peaceful. That is our aim. But whereas in sleep we enter that state, that thought-free state, that egoless state, as a result of tiredness. That is, we're too tired to continue projecting this world, so we fall back into that state. Since ego subsides, what remains is only that pure I am. However, because the ego subsided before the pure I am was before I am was experienced on its own, that doesn't annihilate ego. So ego sometimes pops up again. What we need to achieve is we need to achieve the subsidence of ego, not as a result of tiredness or taking drugs or anesthesia or anything. We need to bring about the subsidence of ego by seeing what we actually are. So we as ego need to turn our attention back to ourselves. If we attend to ourselves keenly enough, we will cease to be aware of anything else. When we cease to be aware of anything else, then we are aware of ourselves as pure awareness. By being aware of ourselves as pure awareness, ego is thereby swallowed and will never rise again. So here and now in the waking state, we need not be concerned about thoughts. Whether thoughts are there or not, we are always there. Our only concern should be about ourselves, attending to ourselves. If we attend to ourselves, there will be no thoughts, because thoughts exist only when we attend to them. So let's not worry about whether thoughts are present or absent. Our only concern should be to attend to ourselves. The more we attend to ourselves, the more thoughts will all withdraw into the background. And finally, the root of all thoughts, the first thought, ego, will submerge back into its source.
Yeah, but how do I relate this to other people? Because one of our friends, she told me to quit Ramana Maharshi's Bhagavan's path. The reason she said that because you have become something different. You were not like this. You used to talk a lot. You used to shop a lot. You used to watch television a lot. You used to, everything that the habits or the patterns that the person was having, the me person was having. So she just pointed out that, and you cannot do that. You cannot just say that whatever will happen, and then this is not right. You cannot believe the universe. You cannot believe the self blindly. That is something different. So you have to completely get away from this path and just be in bhakti path. Only do bhakti. but the grace has not taken me off from there, because the grace knows well better than the person what is better for this soul or what is better for this body.
Yes. So there will always be people this is a problem only when we're looking outwards. But so long as we rise as ego, we do spend at least some of our time looking outwards, and then other people will judge us. Some will say, oh, you're not as you were before, or whatever. That shouldn't concern us, because what is being criticized, the person Asha, but you are not Asha. Yes. You are trying to find out what you actually are. So let Asha be as she is. You need not be concerned about Asha or the friends of Asha. What the friends of Asha may say about Asha, that's not your concern. Your only concern is to know who or what you actually are. Regarding relationships with others, or relating this to others, how can you relate what you experienced in sleep to others? You cannot. That is in the state of sleep. It's a state of kaivalyam. Kaivalyam means a state of solitude. We are totally alone and we have no problems. We don't even have this ego. So sleep is a very nice state. The trouble is we keep on coming out of it. Now we need to return to it, but return to it by means of self-attentiveness. Not just by getting tired, because when we get tired, the ego first subsides, and then only we experience what we actually are. We need to experience what we actually are, and thereby get rid of ego, because ego, we seem to be ego only so long as we're attending to other things. So if we attend only to ourselves and are aware only of ourselves, ego will thereby be swallowed by the infinite clarity of pure awareness. And when ego is swallowed, there will be no others to criticize you. You alone, because what is real is only you.
Yeah, so actually, I'm left alone now. Like I'm not like truly speaking, Michael. This doesn't bother me. Criticism doesn't bother me, because I know it's for us, it's not for the self. Yeah. But I am left alone. I'm happy. Everybody is slowly going away. All relationships, everything by themselves. Probably it's Grace who is doing it, because they feel that I became different. So I'm not. You can say that I'm not interesting as before. Yeah. So because I'm not interesting, I'm not needed for everybody. So slowly I'm just going away.
This will inevitably happen. This will inevitably happen. That is, there will be maybe still some close friends who understand, who are also on the same path, but the majority of the world will not understand. But we still have to live in this. I mean, so long as we take ourselves to be this body, it seems we still have to live in this world. So we don't, outwardly we can act as if we are just normal. We don't have to make a show of this, but inwardly, we are no longer interested in the things that others are interested in, because Bhagavan has given us something far, far more interesting than anything in this world.
This is what has happened to me, Michael. That's what I mentioned to you in the email, that there is no interest for anything. Slowly, everything is cutting off, and relationships, or whether things or objects or nothing. It's just the loneliness, but I enjoy that loneliness.
Well, it's not loneliness; it's aloneness.
Yes,
loneliness.
That's like, I enjoy it because, okay, that's what I am. So I'm with I am. So doesn't bother me anything.
Exactly. Things will drop off. That is the nature of this path. This is not the pravritti path. The pravritti path means going outwards. This is the nivritti path. So on this nivritti path, things will drop off.
That's what I said. That when I looked for him outside, I didn't find him. But when I turned myself around within, towards within, and I saw that he was there already, I didn't have to find him outside.
Yes. Because he is ever shining in your heart as I. He is what you actually are. So know yourself and you know God.
Yeah, that's it. Michael, thank you so much.
Okay, right. Fran, I'll answer your question in a minute. I'll just do one more email. the next question is a friend Amit has written, referring to an article I wrote recently. If everything is predestined, how can the law of karma be true? This was a question that someone put to me, but that person then provided his own answer, which actually wasn't in accordance with Bhagavan's teaching. So what Amit asks about this, about what I've written, trying to reconcile the following two statements. Bhagavan, yes, this is, I think, a quote from one of Devaraj Mudlia's books. Yes, everything is predetermined. He added, even taking a cup of water is predetermined. So any okay. This person to whom I was answering was had written this. That is, he quoted Bhagavan as saying everything is predetermined, and then he added, even taking a cup of water is predetermined. So any illusion of freedom, swatantra, or to want or change anything is just that, an illusion. The only freedom is to turn the mind within and renounce actions there, as he put it in the first quote above. That is a bit of a misinterpretation of what Bhagavan taught, because Bhagavan never said there's, but yes, freedom that is what Bhagavan called ichakriya swatantra. It is an illusion, but so is fate an illusion. Because they all exist only in the view of ego, but they are as real as ego. So simply saying that it's illusion is not helpful in this context. What we need to investigate is the root of fate and will, that is ego. So then the next passage he quotes is something that I had written. What I had said, yes, the script is written, but the script that has been written is prarabdha. So we cannot deviate from that script. But not every action of the actor is scripted. So long as he does not deviate from the script, he has a limited freedom to do as he pleases, because this is in connection with the analogy of an actor. He has limited freedom to do as he pleases without detracting from his performance. For example, one day he may scratch his head and another day he may not. Or one day he may speak some lines facing one part of the audience, whereas another day he may speak the same lines facing another part of the audience. Likewise, though we cannot deviate even in the least from the script of prarabdha, we nevertheless have limited freedom to do whatever agamya we please. This limited freedom is what Bhagavan called ichakriya swatantra, the freedom of will and action. And then this friend writes about this, the reconciliation seems to be explained by, and again he quotes, this is something, an answer I've written to someone else in one of the comments. Though we experience our will, our likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, hopes, fears, and so on, and the actions of our mind, speech, and body, thoughts, words, and deeds that we do under the sway of our will, namely agamya, these are not things that happen to us, but things that happen by us. So they are not prarabdha and therefore not predetermined. And another passage I wrote, fate drives only those actions that are necessary for us to do in order for us to experience our fate. So such actions are its domain and can never be obstructed by will. All other actions belong to the domain of will. And then the question Amit asks is, doesn't fate have dominion over all actions, including actions by us? I.e., won't actions by us result in an experience to us? And all experiences that happen to us are predetermined, prarabdha. That is, whatever actions we do that are not in accordance with our prarabdha will not result in any experience, at least not in this lifetime. The fruit of whatever actions we do according to our will are not experienced in this life. They are stored in what is called sanchita, which means a heap or pile. That is the store of the fruits of our past actions, and they will be experienced by us as and when and if God chooses to allot them as part of our experience in a future life. So this is what Bhagavan has taught us about the law of karma is actually very, very simple, but somehow we always complicate it. What Bhagavan has said is there is both will and fate. We do have freedom of what he called Ichcha Kriya Swatantra. Ichcha Swatantra means freedom of will. That means freedom to want what we want. Kriya Swatantra means freedom to do what we want. But the freedom to do what we want, we wouldn't be free. It would be meaningless to say we're free to do what we want if we were not free to want what we want. So Bhagavan usually talks about them these two freedoms, the freedom to will and the freedom to act. He talked about them collectively as Ichcha Kriya Swatantra. And Bhagavan explained the whole law of karma is based on the fact that we have Ichcha Kriya Swatantra. Because what is agamya? Agamya is the action that bears fruit. Agamya are those actions we do according to using our Ichcha Kriya Swatantra. In other words, the actions we do according to our will, those are agamya. Only those actions bear fruit. The fruit of our agamya gets stored as sanchita and is later allotted for us, or maybe later allotted for us to experience as prarabdha. So both sanchita and prarabdha are the fruits of agamya. And agamya is actions that we do using our freedom of will and action. So there are many people who, because in some books, the people who recorded what Bhagavan said didn't understand what he said, people get confused about this. Because, for example, Devaraja Mudli has recorded somewhere, but Bhagavan said everything is predetermined. If you take that statement by itself, it leads to a misunderstanding, because what Bhagavan said, everything is predetermined. That means everything you are to experience is predetermined. And in another place he recorded, Bhagavan said, the only freedom you have is to turn within. The context in which Bhagavan said that is, the only freedom you have to escape from the cycle of that is from samsara, from the perpetual cycle of action and the fruit of action, is to turn within. That doesn't mean we don't have freedom to want things or to try to experience those things. So it's actually there are two things. Fate is concerned with what we are to experience. Will is concerned with what we want to experience. What we want to experience cannot change what we are to experience. And what we are to experience cannot change what we want to experience. So they're two entirely separate domains. Both are equally real. The fate is the result of the previous misuse of our will. It's only in the realm of action that there's a seeming overlap. That is, whatever actions we need to do in order to experience our prarabdha, we will be made to do. That's what Bhagavan said in the first sentence of his note to his mother, that according to the prarabdha of each one, he who is for that will make them act, will make them dance. He who is for that, being in the heart of each one, will make them act. That is, he said, being there implies being in the heart of each one. So those actions that we need to do in order to experience our prarabdha, we will be made to do those actions. That doesn't mean all actions are according to prarabdha, because in the next two sentences, he says, what is never to happen will not happen, however much effort you make. What is not to happen will not stop, however much obstruction you make. So that means we are free. What is destined to happen, it's going to happen, but we're free to want it not to happen. And we're also free to want what is not destined to happen. And we're also free to try for that, because that's why he says, whatever effort you make or whatever obstruction you make, it's not going to change it. So we are free to act according to our will. So the actions we do, we cannot distinguish which actions are actions driven by our will and which actions are driven by destiny. Many actions will be driven by both. if it's our destiny to experience something and we want to experience it, whatever actions we do to experience that will be driven both by destiny and by our will. So it is meaningless trying to judge which actions are driven by will and which actions are driven by destiny. Actions don't come with a label. This is destiny action. This is a free will action. We experience all the actions of our body, speech, and mind as actions done by us. Whether they are driven by prarabdha or driven by our will or driven by both, we still experience it. I am doing this. I am sitting here. I am talking. I'm thinking. All these actions, we have that sense of doership. Most of the actions we do are being driven by our will. Some of them are driven also by our prarabdha, because in order for us to experience that prarabdha, it's necessary for us to do certain actions. So God will make us do those actions. So it's actually so simple, but people get confused. In this context, there are a few other questions I've been asked a few days ago, earlier this week. I had a discussion with a friend called Dennis, and one of the main topics we talked about was about will and fate. So there's a friend who's there are several questions I was asked in that regard. So I will answer those now. One person asked, with regard to what happens to us, does that include thoughts that pop up in our head as well? The answer to that is, we do actions by mind, speech, and body. So the thoughts are actions done by us, by mind. All the actions of mind, speech, and body, the actions of mind, speech, and body, any action may be driven by destiny or by will or by both. We cannot tell, and we need not tell. So if it's our destiny, for example, to go out to the shops to buy something and to be hit by a car when crossing the road, the thought will pop up in my mind, oh, I need such and such a thing from the shop. I need to go to the shop and buy some bread. So we do the actions, we follow on from those thoughts. We put on our coat, we go out, and we come to a road and we think, oh, that car's far away, I can cross the road quickly. We cross the road, but the car's coming faster than we judge, and we're hit by the car. That is because it's our destiny to be hit by the car. That thought and that action of going out and crossing the road at that point, that's all driven by destiny. But who is it who wants the bread? I want the bread. So it's also driven by our will. So we can't, many actions are driven by both fate and will. Some are driven only by fate, and some are driven only by will. We cannot and need not know. So this is equally true of the thoughts that we think, but the words that we speak and the actions that we do by body, all are driven by these two forces, fate and will. And they work, they're two faces of the ego. So, I mean, we can't separate them. That is why in verse 19 of Ulladu, Bhagavan says, the dispute about which prevails, fate or will, is only for those who do not know the root of fate and will. What is the root of fate and will? Ego. But it's only ego that has a will to do all these actions and that consequently experiences the fruit of those actions. So ego is the problem. If we don't understand that the nature of ego is to have a will of its own, but to have no control over what happens as a result of its misuse of its will, if we don't understand, if we don't recognize that the ego is equally the root of will and the root of fate, we get into a meaningless argument about which prevails. Each prevails in its own domain. In the domain of what we are to experience, fate prevails, because fate alone decides what we are to experience. In the realm of what we want to experience, the will prevails, because fate cannot change. It may not be my destiny to have that loaf of bread. It may be my destiny to be hit by the car instead. But that destiny doesn't stop me wanting to have that loaf of bread. So I go to a shop to get the loaf of bread, but it's not my destiny to reach for a shop because I'm due to be hit by a car and I end up in hospital. So what is destined to happen will happen. Whatever we want, whether we want it or not, it's going to happen. And what's not destined to happen is not going to happen, whether we want it or not. What we want to happen is not going to change just because our destiny is otherwise. I may be hit by the car, but still I want that bread. So when I finally come home from hospital, I go to the same shop and I buy the loaf of bread, and I finally get my loaf of bread. So these two things are happening side by side in our life. We need not try and distinguish them. What we need to understand is why Bhagavan taught us this law of karma. What is going to happen is going to happen. What is not going to happen is not going to happen. There is no point in our wanting anything different or trying to achieve anything different. So we should not be, we cannot change the actions that we are to do according to prarabdha. So we should not be concerned about action at all. Those actions which are to happen according to prarabdha will happen. Those actions which are driven by our will happen only if we rise as ego. If we turn our attention within to investigate this ego will subside, its will subside along with it, and therefore whatever actions happen will only be according to destiny. But as soon as we allow ourselves to rise as ego, we come under the sway of our vasanas, and our vasanas will constantly impelling us to act according to the whichever vasana happens to pop up in our mind. So we need to curb the vasanas that drive us to act. How do we curb them? By turning back within. That's one of the questions I was asked. Another question I was asked was, the same person actually asked, I really appreciate the time you have spent on explaining the difference between fate and free will. The only part I'm still confused on is the following part. I will create a story so that it can be broken down easier. If I was to go up to someone in the street that I have never met before and ask them if they like the color blue, is that my free will to ask them that question? And if they say no, their favorite color is red, is this fate, that person telling me that? And if so, then would this person that I had never met before still tell me that their favorite color is red, even if I decided to use my free will in stopping them in the, if I decided not to use my free will in stopping them in the street, asking them the question in the first place? This is we cannot, as I say, we cannot divide actions as actions according to fate and actions according to will. We cannot distinguish them. If it's our destiny to be told where that person's favorite color is red, it may be our destiny that prompted us to ask that question. We cannot say that it's our free will. We may have been curious to know whether this person likes blue. So the curiosity may have prompted us, but the fact that we asked that and got that reply is because destiny was also working there. So destiny and free will are working so closely together. The two are interwoven. We cannot distinguish any one action we do, or this is a free will action, this is a destiny action. It's just not as simple as that. What we need to understand, whatever we are to experience, that is destiny. Whatever we want to experience, that's our will. The two are both driving our actions. We can't distinguish which actions are which, and we need not be concerned about that. Our concern should be to turn within and investigate ourselves. If we are interested in investigating what we are, then we need have no concern about actions at all. That is, it's only when we're interested in things other than ourselves that this whole question of fate and will arises. And Bhagavan has given us a very, very simple solution. He said, what is destined to happen? That is going to happen. What is not destined to happen? That is not going to happen. In other words, we cannot change what is to happen. And that is, in other words, whatever we are to experience, that is going to be experienced by us. Whatever we want, that is the domain of our will. That we have control over. So are we going to allow ourselves to be swayed by our vasanas and go outwards, or are we going to turn within? That's the basic choice we have. If we allow our mind to go outwards, then am I going to be swayed by this vasana or that vasana? The whole thing becomes rather complicated. But the simple solution is not to allow our attention to go out at all, to turn our attention within. That should be our aim. We may not be able to do that, but even when do that all the time, but at least we should try as much as possible. And even when we allow our attention to go outwards, as far as possible, we should be trying to curb our vasanas. We should be trying to curb our mind from being swept this way and that way by its vasanas. We should always be just yielding ourselves to the will of God and trying as much as possible to turn within. There was one other question I was asked, but I think there's not time to answer that here. So I will just, Fran, you had your hand raised. Do you want to ask your question?
Sure, Michael. I sent a question through chat, but you can disregard it.
Okay.
Looking at the teachings of the sadhana saram, I think you answered these questions nicely, and I want to just conclude that if one stays in the self and continues to stay focused on the subject and doesn't allow for the mula vasana to take place, then there is no parabdha and there is no karma. There's no worries of this. There's no worries of this. And this is 115, I think, from A Light on the Teaching of Ramana, even before the experience of the current destiny, parabdha karma, which causes the so that's it. And I wanted to connect that to something that was prior to that, which was at the time of death, if one is in this self state, if awareness is conscious of awareness, if we are the self, if there is no I, does that make a difference relative to coming back in I know this is also probably just Maya, the discussion, and I'm kind of getting the sense that all of this is Maya compared to staying in the self, as being staying conscious of awareness or staying in the subject.
Okay. What you seem to be describing is the state of practice, the state where we are trying to be self-attentive, where we're trying to attend only to ourselves, the basic awareness I am. So long as it requires effort for us to be self-attentive, in other words, so long as there's still an inclination of our mind to go outwards towards other things, we are still in the state of practice. So ego is still alive. Whenever we allow ego to come outwards, there is then both the will and the fate and both exist there. That is, we have likes and whenever we rise as ego, we have our likes and dislikes, our desires and attachments and so on. These drive us to do actions. And at the same time, we have to experience the fruits of whatever actions have been destined for us to experience in this lifetime. So the doership and experiencership, they are there so long as there is ego. The only thing we can do to curb this is to turn our attention within. The more we turn our attention within, the more ego subsides, and the less we are therefore affected by whatever may be happening outwardly. But still, the outward appearance seems to be going on until ego is annihilated. Once ego is annihilated, then we know there never was any ego, there never was any will, there never was any destiny, there never was any world. What is alone is as it is and as it always is. So, but that is the state of attainment. So long as we're talking about death, we're still aware of a body. So we shouldn't confuse practice with attainment. The practice is aiming at the attainment, which is the state of just being as we actually are. But so long as ego has not been swallowed in the light of clear self-awareness, we are still we are still practicing, and we are still, the vasanas are still there tending to draw us outwards, and the love is there to turn back within, so we go back within, and then again we get carried out by vasanas, and again we turn back within. This is all part of the practice, and so long as we are looking outwards, that is, we have to experience whatever destiny there is to experience. And we have to try and curb the will which is driving us to like this and dislike that and do this and do that. We need to be curbing these things. As I say, the most effective way to curb them is to turn back again within. So this is the practice we have to carry on until this ego is swallowed. Is that a clear answer or not?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it all goes back to the intellect and constant, we love the teaching and love your work. And yet we, when we're not practicing, sometimes we like to be intellectual more than practicing. So we're reading words. We're reading words.
A clear intellectual understanding is necessary in order to put it into practice. But also the intellectual understanding, two things. Firstly, in order to understand what we are to practice, we need a clear intellectual understanding. Also, the clear intellectual understanding will give us the motivation to put it into practice. So understanding it, the Bhagavan's teaching is very important, because it's firstly, we couldn't practice it correctly if we didn't understand that what we are is just the awareness I am. We are not this body or mind or any of these things. If I take myself to be this body and I'm told to attend to myself, I can sit in front of a mirror and look at myself. That is not practicing self-investigation. So we first need to understand the teachings correctly. And though Bhagavan's teachings are very simple, they're also very deep and very subtle. So the more clearly we understand them, the more correctly we'll be putting them into practice. That's one thing. The other thing is his teachings motivate us to turn within. So, to understand his teachings clearly and correctly is very important. But merely thinking about his teachings is not going to give us the clarity. We get a certain amount of clarity by reading, that is the Sravana, and by thinking about them, that is the Manana. But the real clarity comes only from turning within. The more we turn within, the more we are, so to speak, bathing our mind in the light of pure awareness. And we are thereby cleansing it and clarifying it. So with the greater clarity that we gain by practice, we are then able to understand Bhagavan's teachings more clearly and more deeply. So the understanding of the teaching is very necessary, but we need to go deep. We need to go deeper and deeper within. That will give us a deeper and deeper understanding of the teachings. Is that clear?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there's always that fine line between wanting to feel like there's more to know. And in reality, it's hard work just to stay focused on within.
Yeah. When we say more to know, there's not more facts or details or information to know. We just need to understand more clearly, and we gain that clarity of understanding by putting it into practice and then reading the text, and then putting it into practice and then reading the text. The two must go hand in hand.
Thank you, Michael.
That is the same word, we may have read Ulladu 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. That time we understood something. Now we understand it so much more clearly. And 5 years hence, we'll understand it still more clearly.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Not that there's anything new to know. It's a deeper clarity of understanding.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Jan, you had your hand raised. Did you want to ask anything?
Yes. Hi, Michael.
Yes.
I have just a practical question. I mean, that which you talk, it's very uplifting. I appreciate it. But how to actually turn within and keep attention to myself? Like when I'm thinking about these ideas, I'm thinking that only thing I'm not doing is keeping attention on myself. So could you tell how to do it actually?
it's not actually a doing. That is, we are always aware. We are always aware of ourselves. That is, we're aware I am. But though we are aware I am, our interest is most generally, we're more interested in knowing other things than we are in knowing I am. So our attention is going out towards other things. So though we are always self-aware, we are negligently self-aware. That is, we are taking I am for granted, and we're attending to other things. Yes, we're taking I am for granted. It's just that if you go to a cinema, you go there to watch a film. What you are looking at for all the 2 or 3 hours you're in the cinema, you're looking at a screen. But do you notice the screen? No, you only notice the pictures on the screen, because it's not to look at the screen that you went to the cinema. It's to look at the picture that's projected on the screen. We are like that. We are so interested in these external things, we overlook though we are always aware of the screen, which is the basic awareness I am, we're overlooking it and attending only to the pictures. Now we need to turn our attention away from, in the case of a screen, it's the pictures are projected on the screen. But in this case, it's a bit simpler because the pictures are out there, the screen is in here.
Yeah, so we need in our case, it's just objects, like mental objects. In our case,
any object, whether thoughts or feelings or anything, they're all out there. They're all external to ourselves. What is inside is only I. So we need to turn our attention back towards I. So instead of being negligently self-aware as we usually are, we need to be attentively self-aware. That is, we need to be, we need to bring this awareness I am to the forefront, as it were. We can try and explain it in words, but no words can adequately explain this. This is why Bhagavan called this path the path of vichara. Vichara means investigation. When we are investigating something, we are trying to know something. So because this is a part of investigation, we learn how to attend to ourselves by trying to attend to ourselves. How can you learn to ride a bicycle? If you don't know how to ride a bicycle, you can read books about it. You can read about you can read the physics of gravity and center of gravity and how things balance. But whatever theoretical knowledge you know, you're not going to learn how to ride a bicycle without getting on a bicycle and trying. And the first few times you fall off. And slowly you get the hang of it. You're a bit wobbly, but you're beginning to get the hang of it. After a few weeks of trying, it becomes second nature to you. There's nothing easier than riding a bicycle. But you couldn't have learned to ride a bicycle without trying. Likewise, in this self-investigation, we can learn what self-attentiveness is only by trying to be self-attentive. The more we try, the clearer it will become.
Would you say that self-attentiveness arises by itself when attention to objects is withdrawn?
No, not necessarily. That is, take sleep. In sleep, we are too tired to continue projecting. So we cease projecting any thoughts or world.
And still it's unawareness.
That is, we draw our mind from other things without fixing it on ourselves. That's basically what we do when we fall asleep. Because we withdraw our attention from other things, we as ego subside, and what remains is sleep, which is the state of pure self-awareness. But there's no self-attentiveness in sleep, because the attention is a faculty of ego. That is, what is attention? It's a selective use of our awareness. When we're aware of many things, we choose to focus our awareness on one thing or a set of things rather than on other things. So it's only for ego there is attention. So when we subside in sleep, ego disappears, so there's no ego left there to attend to anything. Now in the waking state, our attention is generally going outwards because we are interested in other things. We need to divert the outward going attention, turn it back towards ourselves. We can, if you try very yoga techniques for stopping thoughts, if you try pranayama, for this it said, these can be quite dangerous techniques. So it said you should have a properly qualified guru. You can be trained in pranayama to such an extent, you can control breath and completely stop all thought. Then the mind subsides in a state of manalaya, which is called nirvikalpa samadhi, which is actually no different to sleep. But it's given a fancy name, nirvikalpa samadhi. That is of no use to you. Bhagavan told the story of a yogi who went into to nirvikalpa samadhi for 300 years. And when he woke up, the first thing was he asked, where's my water? The last thought he had before going into that state was the first thought that popped up. That means no vasanas are destroyed at all, Bhagavan said. So nirvikalpa samadhi, that type of nirvikalpa, is of no use. What we need, our aim is not to give up thinking, not to give up. Our aim is to attend to ourselves. When we attend to ourselves, automatically we give up thinking. That's a byproduct, but that shouldn't be our concern. The aim in yoga, yogas chitta vritti nirodha. That's the first sutra in the Yoga Sutra. Yoga is restraining the chitta vrittis, the thoughts of the mind. Bhagavan said that's impractical. In this path, our aim is only to know ourselves. Atmanusantana, he says. Atma and Vaishnava, that's investigating ourselves.
Is to know what the mind is. We're not trying to destroy mind, we're looking what the mind is.
Yes, but what the mind is, the mind, as Bhagavan said, the mind is, we need to be careful when we use the word mind, because mind is used in a different sense in different contexts. So generally we use the term mind for all the totality of all thoughts. But of all those thoughts, the root is the first thought, I, that is ego. Why is that the root? Because all other thoughts are objects. They appear only in the view of the subject. The subject is ego, the first thought. So that is what we are investigating. Who am I? Who is the subject? So we're trying to know the truth of the knower, know the knower, see the seer, witness the witness.
So is it a question, who is aware of this thought or feeling or emotional,
yes.
like to whom it comes?
But how you frame the question is not important. In fact, you need not ask a question at all. The question is only an aid to turn our attention back towards ourselves, to remind ourselves to attend to ourselves. So to whom is this thought, or who is thinking this thought, or who is aware of this, or to whom does this appear? All these questions are just to turn our attention back to ourselves. So it's not, self-investigation is not questioning. Though Bhagavan never said, ask who am I, or ask to whom are these thoughts. He said, investigate who am I, investigate to whom are these thoughts. So the idea is that we turn our attention back to ourselves.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Right, but it all becomes clear. The more we put this into practice, the clearer it becomes. And otherwise, if you try to explain to someone who isn't ready to put it into practice, they'll never grasp it.
I know.
We can only taste it to the extent that we actually try. So the practice is all important. And Bhagavan's teachings will become so much clearer. The deeper we go in the practice, the clearer his teachings will become. The more we'll be able to recognize their simplicity and clarity and depth and subtlety.
It seems in this path, I've been like practicing this. I come across it about 10 years ago about his teachings, and it seems like I'm going up and down on this. Like at some time in past, I can feel like I had very good grasp of it, but then I lost this intuition again, and I'm trying to understand it.
But it's the nature of the mind to be always trying to go outwards. So when we go outwards, we've lost hold of it. So we need to try to hold it again. So it's, as Bhagavan said, perseverance is absolutely essential. The more we persevere, the deeper we will be able to go. The deeper we go, the clearer it will all become.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Cheers.
Right. So, Alistair, I think you're waiting for me. I hand over charge to you. I surrender to you.
It's very gracious of you. I think you'd be better off handing over and surrendering to Bhagavan.
I see Bhagavan in you.
Oh,
but not in, I still don't see Bhagavan in myself. That's the problem.
No. I just think all that you have on your plate is extremely tiring, Michael. We're very grateful to you for what you do give us.
Actually, talking about Bhagavan teachings, I don't find tiring. What I find tiring is dissipation. So when I get, for me, the emails are the most tiring thing, because I get dozens of emails every day. I can't reply to them all, but even replying to a few of them, I just find I get very dissipated. And that I find a bit tiring. But if I'm just focusing on a particular question about Bhagavan teachings, I feel energized. But we all have our limits. I mean, obviously, I can't. I do what I can, and the rest, it's all up to Bhagavan. So,
do you find that the emails, the questions which come, they're each? I mean, that they tend to follow certain groups of questions, or they're about certain topics?
They are about certain topics, but everyone asks from a particular perspective. Some people have suggested that I should have an FAQ or something on my website, but it's not so simple as that. Each person, though they're, I mean, one of the main questions I'm asked about is this thing about fate and will, because though that is, that's an important part of Bhagavan teachings. It's not the very core of Bhagavan teaching, but why Bhagavan taught us this law of karma, in order to free our mind from interest in external things. So it's very useful what he taught us, but for some reason people find it very difficult to grasp. Everyone wants to know, is this action free will or is it destiny? There is no answer to that question. The fact is, whatever happens is destiny. Whatever we want is our will. We cannot change the destiny. We can curb our will. We curb our will by turning within. That's the main point. If people grasp that, if they grasp the basic principles, it's actually extremely simple. But people continue asking questions. Though it's basically I'm giving the same answer again and again.
I wonder whether you can have, like under topic certain things, because actually it works quite well. I mean, I just see this with teaching that, and I've seen this with TAs, teaching assistants doing this very, very well, is that, that there comes a point when you've had a question many times, and then even when sort of, as you answer it repeatedly, it becomes very clear. And the words change. There's a clarity which comes with practice.
That is my experience. Yes.
And one can just have a little clip of that, or written down. I mean, sometimes a clip is easier. Whatever people like, a little video clip or something, and refer people to that. And then if they still have something, they come back, because it's not that it's impersonal, but sometimes things are said with great clarity, and it's enough. And it kind of works quite well. And then if there's something, after thinking about that, if there's something further somebody wants to ask, that's a bit different.
Yes. But even on videos in which I've explained these things as clearly as I can explain it, people still ask the same questions. So
I mean, sometimes it's just, I mean, for all of us, it's just, this mind that is, it's just agitated. It's nothing more than that.
That is the thing is, Bhagavan's teachings are extremely simple, but our minds tend to be extremely complicated. So for people to grasp the simplicity is difficult. That's why, however, I mean, Bhagavan was asked the same questions again and again and again. He explained things, but there were some people, like this thing about fate and free will. This was a question that really troubled Devaraja Mudliya. He asked Bhagavan so many times, and he once told Sadhu Om, I could never grasp. Bhagavan says everything is predetermined, and he also says you have Ichchakriya Swatantra, and you have to use your Ichchakriya Swatantra wisely, that is your freedom to will and act. But I was always having difficulty grasping, they seemed to me to be contradictory. So I would ask Bhagavan, and whenever Bhagavan answered me, it seemed to me to be clear. But after some time I would think about it again, and again it would be unclear. So I would ask Bhagavan again. So
actually, it was very good because this comes up. It comes up in all the Indian traditions, and
yes.
there's a lot of confusion about it. And the first time that I ever taught Buddhism, the person whose course I was taking, who was on leave, she had a very nice quote, which is from the sutras, and I repeated this to people who were very experienced practitioners, because it's always that everything is determined. I don't know, but at the same time, they're making this effort. You see, I mean, why are you making the effort if everything is determined? And it was very much that karma, there are two aspects. One is, of course, the result of the action, which is the context in which you're living and experiencing and doing. And the other is the intention, the effort which you're putting in, the intention of will. So there are these two aspects. So there is a context, and it's a mental and physical, whatever, collective context, bodily context, whatever. But there is something going on in that. So, you can desire all these things you want to, but be careful what you desire. It will have that consequence. I mean, it's not that difficult, really, but I think maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think, that maybe one needs to conceptually, to intellectually untangle that there are these two aspects, at least,
Well, this is what I tried to do. I tried to explain it, but it's just, people need to be ready to view things very simply. But if we allow our mind to rise and ask many questions, we confuse matters. Sometimes that is, the real clarity comes only from looking within. And so long as people, because our questions tend to be outward going questions. So if we really want to understand any aspect of Bhagavan's teachings, including this, what he talks about, the law of karma, we need to look within. The more we look within, the clearer things become. And everything then, it becomes what seemed previously very complicated, very mysterious, very difficult to grasp, becomes simpler and simpler, and it's something extremely simple. All of Bhagavan's teachings are extremely simple. The problem is for the mind with many different ideas and many different beliefs and many different questions and everything, it's difficult to grasp the simplicity.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes time. It's experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's turning within.
So ultimately, the answer to all questions is put it into practice. Practice what Bhagavan has taught, and all will become clear. But we need patience. It doesn't all become clear overnight.
Yeah, and the practice isn't clear in the first instance, isn't it? Because it's
It's a gradual process of deepening of clarity and understanding, and
takes a long time.
Deeper going within.
Yes. Well, it's something to be learned, how to not be exhausted.
Yes, it is.
Thank you again.
The more our mind goes outward, the tireder we become. The more the mind goes inward, the more rested we are.